SimsNation, welcome to another edition of the Positively Pat Sims Show, where we are the greatest pro wrestling show to air every Saturday morning, right here on WANT Radio and live streaming on YouTube. And before we get into the Hulk Hogan Real American documentary series with my very dear, close personal friend, George Fenmore, I do just quickly want to address what happened yesterday. I don't want to get too deep into it because we could make an entire episode of it. But yesterday, WWE went on a string of releases. They happen all the time, especially after big events like WrestleMania, SummerSlam, that kind of thing. They make sense sometimes, sometimes they don't. And there's a lot right now that don't make a lot of sense. The wrestlers tend to take them pretty rough. And the ones that are still there, it happens to every promotion. It's happened since I was a kid, and all you do is you wish the best for these guys. Luckily, there are places to go. There is AEW, there is TNA, there's all kinds of places these guys can go and truly make a name for themselves. And I'm sure for some of those guys, we'll be seeing them again down the line. So there's always a chance for these guys to go out and truly just conquer and dominate the same way that Cody Rhodes did when he left, the same way that Matt Cardona did when he left, Drew McIntyre, all these guys going out and truly getting over. So we wish them nothing but the best. And with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, I want to introduce you to my very special guest this morning. He is a fellow DDPY warrior and instructor. He is my friend, ladies and gentlemen, the one and only George Fenmore. Good morning, George.
Morning, everybody. We are live. All right, how's everyone doing today?
We are live. It is fantastic, and I'm excited. I forgot that the Hulk Hogan documentary was even coming out this week. And I had a whole different idea of what I wanted to do this morning for the show, because I'm still riding high off of night 2 of WrestleMania. Night 1, not so much, but night 2, I was definitely riding that wave, thanks to some good matches, and of course that main event that is going to stand as one of the best. It was incredible. And I thought, you know what, let's get one more show out of it. And all of a sudden, I'm sitting at home, and I see that the Hulk Hogan documentary is out. And so I start watching it, and I'm like, well, I think we found our show. So one of the biggest issues, George, that I remember seeing when this was even announced and they started teasing this was how much of this was going to be reliable. How much of this was going to be fact, how much of it was going to be fiction, because whatever you think of Hogan, whether you're a fan or not, we've got to admit that Hogan has a tendency to, if we're going to put it mildly, exaggerate.
Yeah.
And the documentary doesn't mention that fact very often. I think one guy does mention the idea that Andre's weight balloons every time Hogan tells the story. But what were your expectations going into this documentary? Did you think you were going to get did you think you were going to get what we got? What were you expecting when you started watching?
So for me, this was a double-edged sword and kind of hard to watch. In fact, if we weren't doing this podcast on this thing, I was going to procrastinate watching it, not because I didn't want to see Hulk Hogan. It's because, for me, Hulk Hogan was an idol as a kid.
Right.
I was born in 1983, so I grew up as a Hulkamaniac, right? That was my thing. And then he went to WCW, I became a Hulkamaniac again. Then the NWO came, and I was a big NWO fan, and the Attitude Era, and, yada, 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 right? So, Hogan's always been a big part for me. And after his passing, it was just really, really rough. So I went in there with the expectations of they're just going to go over his wrestling career. I didn't anticipate them to go over his personal life too much. and I was actually shocked of everything that went over. Like there was stuff I didn't even know. Like
Right.
stuff was well, we'll get to that, but like it was just I was shocked.
Yeah, it did go a little bit further into the personal stuff than I expected from this particular documentary. But one of the things that this benefited from being is a series, and documentaries can be fun as just a movie. You know, sometimes a 2 hour movie's fine, but like the Vince documentary that came out, being a series it allows them to tell a much bigger picture and tell a much larger story. However, I am going to say this: there's so much here that I still feel like we were only scratching the surface on a lot of it.
Yeah, I feel like they could have gone if he hadn't passed. There was so much more they could have done.
Right.
I feel like they're not going to continue with it only because, of his passing.
Right.
But I feel like if the show had done well with him alive, they would have went back and shot more and done more and yada yada yada. Because they even said when he asked, "Was that it, guys?" Near the end, he was like, "Yeah, if we have more, we'll come back yet in a couple months." Blah 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 blah. That was the plan, right?
Right.
This is supposed to be more than 4 episodes. This was supposed to be, here's the first four. We'll just show you what we got. You'll approve it. We'll go on. We'll do yada 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 yada. Yada. We didn't get that,
Right.
but
Yeah, I think there was.
man.
I think there was definitely a lot of follow up questions to come.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if there was a lot of things that they had to stop. Like, and we'll get to that. You know, Hogan's brother, he had to. They all had to stop. He didn't want to talk about that anymore, and I'm sure they might have had a follow up for that. They didn't really go too deep into the when he said what he said, and they just kind of. I felt like they just kind of skimmed over it, and maybe with the idea that they would come back to it at another
You,
time.
you know, everybody has this big old conniption fit over what he said.
Right.
I want everyone, all the listeners out here, I want you all to really seriously think about this and ask yourself a true, honest question. Have you ever been so depressed, so out of your mind, and drunk and high on drugs, or just drunk or high, whatever it is that you do? Have you ever been so drunk that you've said something that you don't wouldn't normally say? Because I don't know a single person on this earth who has gotten wasted or gotten high or done something else that hasn't said something that they wouldn't normally say any day of the week, and it's not even how they feel. They just something comes out that's not them. Okay, he got secretly recorded while basically suicidal, while drunk and high on heaven knows what. That's been openly admitted by him. Um, and he was secretly recorded talking to a girl that he's about to do the deed with. Um, like it wasn't even like it was in public, whatever. And he was clearly, if you've seen the footage, which I have, he was clearly on something and drunk, clearly, right? And he openly, the thing, admitted how much fentanyl he was taking. My mom used to take fentanyl patches because she was so ill before it was known what it is now, right? Nobody knew what the stuff then that they didn't. When my mom was on the stuff, you would be out of it, right? Like that alone, and as much as he was taking, he should have been in the grave then. I'll tell you that right now. So everyone has a conniption fit about what he said. I don't agree with what he said personally, but how many times have I gotten completely wasted and gotten told somebody off and something that I didn't personally feel, right? Like it's happened, and so I want people to put yourselves in that shoes for a minute. You don't have to like him, period, but still, you can't blame him. And he's apologized for it. How many times somebody has to say I'm sorry for people to let it go, right? Like,
I think so. Here's my thought on it. So number one, I don't. Whatever he's going through, I don't. It doesn't make it. It doesn't make it less of a thing. Like it doesn't make it.
right.
It's not an excuse to do it. A lot of people would say that when you're high, when you're drunk, you end up saying the things you actually would say if you weren't. Right? Like it just brings out more of what's inside of you. And like I'm kind of that way. I'm a emotional drinker. I'll start spouting off how I really feel about you if I if I start going. And I think there were a lot of people that didn't feel that his apologies were overly genuine. And now that I don't know because I'm not there, I'm going off of what other people had to say. I know that in the documentary, he came across probably more apologetic about it than I'd seen in the past. Um,
Right,
now, I
right.
do,
But
again, I do
go ahead.
understand that he's in a situation that we're not in, and I've never been in that particular situation. We know that there's a lot of people that came to um, his aid and basically said like that's not the man that I know. He's not that way. He made a mistake and so forth. So yeah, I get what you're saying, George. I really do. I think there's just a little bit nowadays where people just don't try to understand any other aspect than he did wrong. And
Right, and nobody knows what forgiveness is anymore
right.
either, right? And again, it's not like he went out on public and started calling everyone that word. He said it, well, whatever. And here's the what really gets me. If his skin color had been a different color, nobody would have cared. It's
Well, if
like
he'd have been anybody else, nobody would have
well,
cared.
nobody would have cared either. But if his skin color had been another color, nobody would have cared. But because of the color of his skin, you're not allowed to say a word. Period. You're just banned from saying the word because of the color of your skin. Now, I've heard him say it, whatever, right? And it didn't sound even too demeaning the way he said it. He was completely. You could tell he was not with it. Um, I don't know. I've said things that for me, like there were things at times like I agree with you. I'll say things, my chest comes out when I'm whatever. But again, he was on so much different stuff, and I've said stuff sometimes when I'm just drinking, and depending on what alcohol I've had, that I would have never said, or I don't even feel like it's happened. It's like,
Let me say this. I'm gonna say this, and then we're gonna get into actually talking
yeah,
about the documentary from the beginning. But I do want to mention the fact that who you are makes a big difference as well, right?
yeah,
The thing that we tend to forget about Hulk Hogan is the pedestal we all put him on. If you or I were to say certain things, it would be forgotten relatively quickly because who are we, right? Like that's not a
yeah,
knock on us in any shape or form. It's just who are we? We're not multimillionaires. We're not huge celebrities and superstars. But if the president comes out and says the same thing, it's scrutinized to the nth degree. And Hogan, I could put Hogan probably above a lot of presidents and things in terms of popularity and what he meant to a lot of people. And we're going to see in this documentary that Hogan a lot of times was his own worst enemy in that he became this persona that he looked at as being the ultimate guy. Like he was just he everything Hulk Hogan did to Terry Bollea was right, and it was good, and it was all this stuff, and anything wrong that was all Terry Bollea, and that's an issue. But Hulk Hogan, to so many of us growing up, was the role model. He was the guy we all looked up to. And I think that part of this problem with what happened with the release of the sex tape and with what happened around all of that, also, we can't deny that it stems from the fact that a lot of people continue to hold him to a higher standard. And then when that happened, for a lot of people, it just all came crashing down. Like they stood by him during the steroid stuff. They stood by him during this issue and that issue. And I think for a lot of people, it wasn't so much that it was the unforgivable sin. I think what it was at that point is it became one sin too many, and it just
right,
capsized the ship. I
right.
that's what I think
I can see
happened.
that. It's not like he hasn't already paid enough for it, right? Like he got removed from the Hall of Fame
Right.
for a while. He eventually got it reinstated, but he got removed. I mean, that was his penalty. He paid the price. He got fired from WWE. He, like everyone scrutinized him, but for how long? At what point is there not forgiveness, right? Like at what point can you ever? Afterwards, he went and refound Christ. He got publicly baptized. He has been a big going to try. He usually was going to church. Like I know that for a fact.
Yeah.
Like he was back to being himself. Everyone falls. Everyone falls down. Yeah. But basically, everyone falls down. No one leaves this world unscathed or
No.
not perfect.
No.
I've fallen down many a times. I know you have, Pat.
What?
Everyone falls down,
How dare
but
you?
they get back up, right? And he did get back up. So, at what point, right? There's got to be a level there where I go, okay, it's been this many years, you know.
Yeah. All right, let's get moving here. Basically this series, it's on Netflix. It's available right now, and the main series. So I have notes, so everybody knows. I've tried something new last night and tonight. I decided instead of just doing what I normally do, which is just winging it and organically just coming up with what comes off the top of my head, I wrote everything down. So here's just the series in a nutshell. It's built around the divide between Terry Bollea, the man, and Hulk Hogan, the character. Netflix frames it as an unfiltered look at the man behind the legend, covering his rise, superstardom, scandals, personal struggles, political turn, and death. It was actually quite surprising when I did watch it, especially when we get into the 4th episode, how much they covered some of the things he did later on, especially getting into the political arena and that kind of thing. Key interview subjects here. There's some interesting names that popped up that I was shocked to see, quite frankly. The last one was the most shocking. I did not think he was going to show up. But you have Hulk Hogan, Linda Hogan, who I thought did a great job in the documentary. I was very pleasantly surprised to see Linda as much as we did. Sky Daily Hogan, Nick Hogan, Jimmy Hart, Bret Hart, who's always fun to watch, Jesse Ventura, who also didn't really get into a lot of the dirt that he likes to shovel out on Hogan, Triple H, Ted DiBiase, the $1 Million Man, not Junior, Kevin Nash, Cody Rhodes, and the big shocker for me, and there was Eric Bischoff. I forgot to write Eric Bischoff on here. The big shocker for me, Donald Trump. I did not see that one coming. Like, if he wasn't president, I could see it coming. But he was in office when this was.
Oh, yeah. I was kind of shocked that he was on there, too. But, like, I knew how much, like, I figured if they were going to cover everything, he was going to be on there. And the reason why I anticipate that was because, again, he was at the Republican National, whatever the heck it was.
The convention,
yeah, the convention. He, like since like the 80s, Hogan, Vince, and him were, friends, right? As much as they covered Donald Trump on wrestling, there was so much they cut out, right? Like, so Trump had hosted a WrestleMania.
2.
Too. He's been actively in the shows numerous times.
Yep.
One time he fought Vince, which we went over when we were talking about a couple, with the hair versus hair.
23.
Yeah. But but he's been in he's been on wrestling a bunch of times, right? Like, he's a big fan of it. He, it's like now he's a big fan of UFC. Just how he's always in UFC in the crowd and stuff like that. Back then it was WWF, right? Like, that's what he was always in, right? So, I wasn't shocked either. I mean, I am shocked that he did it from the White House. That I was shocked.
Yeah.
But,
and what's really funny is so many of the things that were as Trump as you could get. Like he comes in and tells them, like, oh, I had to break away from a Russia meeting or something like that. And then he's like, he's talking about something and they're like, oh, how can you do that? And he's like, no. But I didn't laugh a lot during this documentary because it's not meant to make you laugh. But I got to point this out right now because I'll forget probably later. But when I laughed out loud at this documentary was when Hogan is playing his voicemail from Donald Trump because it is the most Donald Trump voicemail that you could ever hear, where he's
Oh yeah.
because it starts off kind of like, oh, it sounds like two buddies talking, and the other one's like, hey, thanks so much for doing what you did, and then Trump goes off on, it was the highest rated this, or Fox News said this is the highest, the most watched. I mean, it was just everything, just again like over the top, and it's like, that the thing we have to remember about a lot, especially these old school pro wrestlers, that is the world they grew up in. The world they grew up in was, you have to make yourself bigger than life. You have to exaggerate everything, right? And
We didn't get it from We Are Live, right? Like that's where it comes from, right? Was that mindset. Same
yeah,
thing with you in the show. Like that's where it comes from. We grew up like this. This was our childhood. This is how we grew up. This is in our DNA.
yep. It's something that I actually think is kind of missing from today's pro wrestling. How many
Yep.
guys were trying to go out there and become the top star by just turning that volume up to 12, 13, 14? I see guys that are so concerned with getting the fanciest moves in, and sometimes the storytelling gets lost. But so look at WrestleMania 42 again. Let's talk WrestleMania 42. The main event of night 2, CM Punk versus Roman Reigns. These are two guys who didn't go out there and put on a big flippy dippy match. They didn't come up with 8 million different moves to do. They told an incredible story, and these were two over the top characters.
Yep.
It was a recipe for success that was built from an old school mentality. That's what made it work.
Go ahead. That's why, like for example, like Jacob Fatu right now, right? Like the stuff he has that mentality. You can tell by the way he cut his promos, what he does, how he says it. That's the kind of stuff that I want to see. That's why it's so fans are so drawn to him, and he gets over so well, right? Is because of that mentality. He's got it, but there's a lot of people that are top stars that don't. They don't, right? And it's crazy to me.
Yeah. All right. The director of this documentary series is Brian Storkel, and he described the series as mostly chronological. Episode 1 covering Hogan's rise from Terry Bollea, his life, into becoming a pro wrestler, Terry Boulder, bringing in the Incredible Hulk character and becoming eventually Hulk Hogan. Then we have the episode 2, which is the peak of Hulkamania, getting into the 80s and early 90s. Episode 3 is the birth of Hollywood Hogan and the NWO. And episode 4 is the post-wrestling stuff, which is where the story gets complicated, or not so much complicated, but where Hogan's story really starts to take a turn. And we'll get into that. But let's start with episode 1. So this is, I just took some notes here from Netflix too, where it says, who was Terry Bollea? From his discovery of wrestling to his storied rise to fame, the larger-than-life persona of Hulk Hogan is born. So, George, tell me, what did you think about the first episode? Was there stuff there that surprised you, things you didn't know? Talk to me about episode 1.
So I for example, I didn't know that he could really play the guitar like that. For me, I thought he was always just faking it. I didn't know he actually could really play that.
Yeah.
I didn't know that he was in the music business before he became a wrestler. I also didn't know that when he was training to be a wrestler, they broke his leg. Like, I didn't know that.
Oh, you didn't know that? I thought that was kind of common knowledge at this point.
No, I knew he broke his leg, but I didn't know like they purposely broke his leg. That was a difference, right? So like that was all interesting to me. The stuff with his father, like I didn't know. I mean, most people probably didn't know that, right? Like I did. Like I didn't know he had, issues with his dad, and he was, he had to sneak back home to see his mom, and he couldn't sleep in the bed and stuff. Like I didn't know any of that.
Yeah.
I forget what name they said it was, but when he wrestled under the mask, I didn't know that stuff either.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. The Terry Boulder stuff, I didn't know that either. The stuff that I knew about was when he started with Rocky and there for Ron. I didn't know all that stuff pre that. So it was pretty interesting for me.
Yeah. So the only thing I ever knew about Hulk's parents was when he won the title from the Iron Sheik. And they were there celebrating with him. And I will say one of the things I was a little disappointed about, we do get to Hogan's brother, right? We do find out what happened to him. The documentary, once we get to the victory over the Iron Sheik, we never really revisit the parents again. We don't know what happened to them. You know, and I would, based on what we know, I would like to know how that, whatever happened with them, affected the man, Terry Bollea.
I'm sure that probably was one of the things that was asked. He was like, "No, brother, no," because I mean, they already gotten stuff with his brother, and it was too much. He had to cut it because it was getting him too much.
Right.
So,
now, I believe just make sure I'm correct here. So I think it was Vince McMahon Sr. that gave Hulk the Hogan surname.
Yeah.
Which I believe.
Yeah, like what are you talking about?
Right. One thing we did that the documentary does not talk about, though, and I'm again a little surprising. Some things. I mean, I get there's a lot of stuff that probably has to be left out to tell the story they're trying to tell, but I am surprised Marvel wasn't brought up because Marvel actually filed suit because he was calling himself the Incredible Hulk. And eventually the Incredible part was dropped. And he just became Hulk Hogan. But I even had a comic book. George, this might interest you. I don't know if you've ever seen this before. I had a comic book, and I wish I still had it. And in it is just a short little blip here of Hulk Hogan in a wrestling ring, and he's calling himself the Incredible Hulk. And here comes the actual Incredible Hulk, who takes offense to Hogan calling himself that and proceeds to then wipe the floor with Hogan. It was, I'd never seen it before. I saw it when I was a kid, and I was just like, oh my gosh, like this is hilarious. It's Marvel just coming after the pro wrestling industry. I thought it was funny. Had you ever heard of that?
No.
Yeah, I got to find
it.
The first? It wasn't in an Incredible Hulk comic. That's the funny part. I want to say that it was even in a Wolverine comic, if I'm remembering correctly. Yeah, it wasn't a full thing. It was just a short. It was a short little, maybe 3 or 4 pages. That's it.
Oh, wow. Yeah, it is short.
Yeah, but it was hilarious. It was so funny. So I'm a little surprised they didn't bring that up in any way, shape, or form.
Maybe they couldn't because of the way Warrior stuff went or the settlements and blah blah. But
yeah, maybe Marvel's not allowed to be mentioned when it comes to that. Yeah, unless they're actually promoting something from Marvel, something like that. So yeah, I can kind of see that. The thing that always fascinated me whenever I would hear Hogan's story, is the AWA. That always blew my mind because the first time I ever heard that Hogan actually was kind of more of an AWA creation, the Hogan that we know of, that kind of shocked me a little bit, and I found out about that on the AWA documentary that WWE did, where it was Vern Gagne that helped develop the Hulk Hogan character, and of course he starts off as a heel and everything. But then as he progresses, he naturally gets over with the audience. The problem is that Vern tried to take money out of Hogan's pocket. When Hogan went to Japan, he wanted a cut of that money. He didn't want to split the profits of merchandise 50-50. And we forget too that without Hogan, merchandise isn't really a thing.
Yeah.
It was absolutely crazy. Oh, it looks like my wife found it. So Marvel Comics presents number 45 in 1990 in a story titled The Main Event. Well done. Well
Nice.
done to my wife for finding that. So I'm going to have to track that one down. It's actually a very fun. But am I right though? It was just a short. It wasn't a full comic. It was just a short in a series of things. Yeah. Um, but anyway, back to the AWA. Vern wanted more of a cut of everything, and let's be fair, how much could you really blame Vern? I mean, he's probably trying to pull in as much money as he can in the AWA, but he did it at the expense of his biggest star. He never follows through with the storylines where Hogan probably should have won the title. He kept it on Nick Bockwinkel back in the era where if you threw a guy over the top rope, you were disqualified, which that was one of the craziest ways to end a match.
I
But
remember that. I remember that rule, man. WCW had that rule through the early '90s and whatever. Like I remember, and WWF did too. I remember WWF got rid of it first, and then WCW eventually followed suit. But yeah,
so here's another fun fact. During this period, the Hulk was operating as Mr. Fix-It. So this was Gray Hulk, by the way. I do remember it was Gray Hulk. A gray intelligent enforcer in Las Vegas. So some fun facts there from my wife. Love it. Absolutely awesome. Benny the Playa. Benny the Jet Scala in the live chat. What's up, Benny? Champion 98, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for tuning in. I want to hear everyone's thoughts on this Hulk Hogan documentary series. If you have seen it, what did you think? What was good about it? What was bad about it? What were you shocked to see? What surprised you? And what did you feel was missing from it? But anyway, that's what's very interesting here is that I always thought Hogan was more of a WWE creation. That Vince McMahon, the mastermind behind WWE, and Hulk Hogan came together to create this character, and the WWE exploded. But then you look back and you're like, well, Hogan was in WWE. He was a bad guy with some memorable matches against Andre the Giant. Leaves WWE, questions whether he's even going to stay in professional wrestling. Does Rocky III. Against Vince McMahon Jr.'s orders, or not Junior, Senior's orders, and then ends up in the AWA, where I believe this is where he really started to become a pro wrestler, where he was honing the craft. Because even Nick Bockwinkel will tell you that Hogan had a competitiveness in him that they would try to one-up each other, and Hogan would work hard to improve, especially during that time. I think it was in WWE when he realized, I don't have to do that every night. I can just go out there and cut my ear and give a big boot, drop the leg, and go home, and fans would love him for it. But Japan was another story, too, where you had to perform in Japan. But it was really in the AWA where he became the Hulk Hogan we know today. And when he comes back to WWE, he's a name. And people were cheering him already. I think that's because of the groundwork that the AWA laid. But once he beat the Iron Sheik, man, the sky was the limit for the Hulkster. And I would dare say that the business is not where it is today without Hulk Hogan. Many of us watching this show, many of us watching pro wrestling, whether it's AW or whether it's AEW, WWE, we're not doing it without Hulk Hogan. Hulk Hogan transcended the wrestling business.
I'm pretty sure wrestling probably would have died if it wasn't for Hulk Hogan. Because it was everyone was starting to get away from it in the '80s until it blew up in the '80s due to him in WrestleMania, and the celebrities that they involved like Mr. T and so on and so forth. While it had a niche, it was a small niche, and it was getting small. And then think of the drought that we had after the steroid scandal,
Right.
right? Like, can you imagine what it'd have been if Hogan wasn't a thing, like, and WrestleMania wasn't a thing? It would have just that would have been it, right? It would have
Yeah.
been just dead. I
Yeah.
mean, it still would come back, but it wouldn't have been what we know today. Nowhere near.
Like I always heard rumor that I don't know if it's ever been confirmed or not, but what I've heard over the years is that the original idea of who was going to be their star that Vince wanted was Dusty Rhodes. And
Oh, wow.
you can kind of see where that would come from if you watch Dusty versus superstar Billy Graham. You watch those series of matches and tell me that the fans weren't ready to absolutely get behind a title run with Dusty and for him to spend his time up north in New York, right? So,
Yeah.
but let's think about let me pose that question to you. Let's say Dusty's the guy. Does Dusty have the same impact of Hulk Hogan as much as we might love Dusty Rhodes?
No,
Again,
he does.
why do you think? Why do you think it wouldn't have worked with Dusty where it did work with Hogan?
There was something different about Hogan that nobody else has, even to this day. Like, nobody has that. The closest person that we had to that was probably Steve Austin. Um, and even he's like a mile away from where Hogan was in his peak. Um, yeah, he had what they're saying in chat, the 24-inch pythons, his physique, the say your prayers, take your vitamins, all that, um, it was just something different, right? Like nobody had that it factor, no matter who they were. Nobody had that um pull to all levels of the audience, adults, children, everything. Like he was like the perfect. Uh, I don't even know how to say it. It's almost like it was a godsend, right? Like it was like perfect.
Right.
Very for Americans, he was very patriotic. It was just at the right time to be. It was just like everything had lined up. And while Dusty was phenomenal, I see Dusty would have been on a Steve Austin level, but never a Hogan level. So
Yeah,
um,
and I think you make a good point, and the chat makes a good point. I think the look, right?
yeah,
Dusty can get over, no problem. Dusty I think could be a main event guy. I mean, he was a main event guy. I think Dusty is. I'd rather listen to Dusty do promos than Hogan.
yeah,
Personally, but there was something about Hulk, and it's one of those intangibles you can't quite put your finger on. But if you start naming his qualities that made him a star, you're like, okay, well, so it's all of them. Like it's all these things, and I think as much as we want to admit, like, oh, not everybody has to have a body in pro wrestling. It helps. It helps when you look like you're a freaking comic book character come to life. It helps when you look like you could beat the crap out of the guy in the ring next to you. And Hogan was that boyhood dream. He was what we all wanted to be as kids, except for being bald.
yeah. That was like his kryptonite. Like, that was like the one kryptonite that the Hulk Hogan character had, right? And he was by going bald.
Yeah.
But other than that, he had the whole thing like superheroes too. Like he had it like it was all worked out. Like that comeback of his, oh, he's down
Hulking
and
up.
out,
Yep.
got him, and then we just start hulking up, and that was like his super. As soon as he started hulking up, nobody could beat him, right? Like no other wrestler had that type of thing. Like period. At least at that point in time, like nobody else had that type of thing. Like um, that was another thing that helped. That was another quality, right? Like that hulking it up there. Like once it started happening, you knew, oh, Hogan's got it now, right? And he did. Like
And who else could get
very.
away with that? Like
Yeah,
the only guy that tried to do something similar, I remember I wanted to get into it because I was a fan of his. I wanted to get into it, but I just never did in the same way. The Ultimate Warrior tried to be that way. The
yeah,
Warrior would be down, you'd think he was out, and then he'd find his way to the ropes, And
Both
it
for
was kind
shaking.
of neat how he would do it, but it wasn't the same. It didn't have that same impact. And it's like nobody else could get away with taking a finisher, kicking out with just like all the power in the world and just shaking it off like, "Nah, not today, brother." And then just he would get an explosion of cheers just by pointing at a guy.
Yeah.
He'd wag
Who,
that finger.
yeah. Who could get
Very
over
bad
like
man.
that?
Very bad man.
Yeah, but Warrior had that too. Like you would get to the rope, he was shaking the bottom one, then we get to the middle, then we
Yeah.
get to the top. Yeah, it was over for you. Um, but the only other person that they tried to do something with it and it worked for a while, but then he dropped it was the Undertaker. He would just sit up
Yeah.
and he would just sell. But it wasn't the same. It
No.
wasn't the same type of whatever, but it was similar. He basically was no selling, right? Like,
Right.
so that's what Taker did. Eventually, Taker dropped it because he was like, okay, I got to evolve and move on. But like, Hulk was one of a kind, man.
Yeah. Well, let's segues us into episode 2, which is where we really get deep into Hulkamania and how big it really was. And again, like if you didn't live through it, I think it's hard to really explain. I've had people tell me the same thing when it comes to Elvis or the Beatles, right? You didn't live through Beatlemania, you don't really understand how big it was. I didn't live through Beatlemania. Very few people now are we're losing more people that lived through it. So Hulkamania was everywhere. And again, you think of pro wrestling today, right? The Attitude Era was a boom period for WWE. It was the highest ratings they'd ever get. It was huge numbers, and people think that it was the pinnacle, the peak of WWE when they're a much more financially successful company now. So you could argue the success of Attitude versus here, but the numbers don't lie in terms of how many people were watching the product. But without the Hulkamania era, like we said earlier, we don't even get to the Attitude Era. There's nothing to compare to. And Hogan did this essentially like he carried the company, and it's not something that you can dispute fact or fiction here when we talk about what's real and what's not with Hulk Hogan. The numbers are there. Every wrestler will tell you, you wanted to look at the booking sheet and you wanted to make sure you were on with Hogan. Not in a match necessarily, just on the same card. Because if Hogan was there, you made more money. There's not a lot of solo acts in professional wrestling where you can say that for.
Right now, the closest that people have to that is Roman Reigns. Whenever he's on the card, they make more money. It's just a fact right now, currently. Now, whether or not, and people could feel how they want about the character and yada, 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 but right now that is true. Whenever Roman is on the card, you can tell the difference, right? Like it's just big difference. So it's kind of the same thing there, but not to the same degree, right? Like to a lesser degree than what Hogan was.
Right.
Hogan was one of a kind when it came to that. And there's even proof with that, right? Like when he left and eventually went to WCW, and WWE was doing like the Doink the Clowns and stuff like that after the scandal. WWE was really low for a long time, and it took what Hogan was doing to make competition enough for Vince to have to change up to get the Attitude Era, right? So now if the NWO didn't happen, we don't get the Attitude Era.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. WWE was on a downward spiral. Even WCW, when Hulk Hogan came over, and we'll get to that later, but business picked up a little for WCW, but it wasn't shocking. It wasn't earth shattering or didn't really change WCW's trajectory. They were still a distant number 2. It wasn't until the NWO where that all changed. Teddy Belcher is welcome to the show, Teddy. But he says, don't buy Jake Roberts' show. I'm a little confused by the chat statement here. Is there a show to buy? Or are we talking about, is he saying don't buy the documentary about Jake? Which one, if that's the case? Because there's the DDPY one, there's the WWE one that basically lied. There's Beyond the Mat was basically a mini Jake Roberts documentary of all his struggles. There's a lot of Jake Roberts out there, so I'm a little interested to know what Jake Roberts show am I not supposed to buy.
Maybe he means his touring show that he does. Like, I don't know.
The Jake Roberts tickets is never Hogan. Oh, I think he's talking about like event like at a flea market or high school gym. So I guess what he's saying is like if Jake is headlining your event, you're not gonna get you're not gonna buy tickets for that. You're gonna buy tickets to Hogan. I think that's the point he's trying to make. At least that's what it looks like. The sentence structure is is throwing me off a little bit, but that's what I'm reading into it. If I'm correct here, maybe he's just trying to accentuate the point that we're trying to make. But I do know there's also another fun story. Yeah, I failed English too. Hey, no worries, Mr. Teddy. No worries, Mr. Teddy. I was no rocket scientist in school either. Hence why I'm a security. Well, I'm not a security officer anymore, but I run security. And why I didn't start doing anything with my life till I was like 45, or 40, in between 40 and 45. But one fun little fact here. So speaking of Jake Roberts, who George, you've met Jake before.
Many times.
Yeah, I've got to meet Jake. My wife got to meet Jake. I actually got to hug Jake. I was so excited when I got to meet Jake, and I always wanted to tell him how everybody else was fawning over his journey in terms of his, overcoming addiction and that kind of thing, and that never like affected me a lot. What did affect me was the relationship or lack thereof that he had with his father, Grizzly Smith, and that always hit me really hard because that is a huge factor in why we make a lot of the bad decisions that we make. And when we have that, especially us guys, if we don't have that strong father bond and relationship, it can really hurt us. And people don't realize that a lot of times. And I told him about my own struggles with my biological father, and he grabbed me and pulled me in. And I'm 5'10". At my best. You can probably average 5'9". It depends on how straight I stand. Jake's a big dude. And he engulfed me when he hugged me. And he just whispered in my ear something about, I don't want to say exactly, but he was just talking about don't let that continue on. That stuff tries to pass down from father to son. Don't let that affect you. You be better than him, and you keep being you. And it was such a great moment, for me. But Jake, there is a moment in WWE history that did not get brought up that I knew wouldn't, but there's a moment. Jake and Hulk, poor Jake was supposed to be in multiple feuds with top level main eventers. Jake was very, very over. For those of you that don't remember that era, Jake was a huge star. Hulk Hogan at one point was going to feud with heel Jake Roberts.
Yep.
And Hulk comes on to Jake Roberts' little talk show segment back in the time when a lot of guys for some reason had a talk show segment. And Jake DDTs Hogan. The heel, Jake Roberts, DDTs Hogan. And what happens? The crowd erupts. The crowd cheered. And when Jake came backstage, Vince literally just kind of looked at him and went, well, there went that. No feud. Feud over right there. You cannot have your heel getting cheered out of the building like that. And so Jake lost out on probably what could have been millions of dollars feuding with Hulk Hogan and becoming a top heel. And instead, Vince at least had the forethought to turn Jake and make him into a very, very popular babyface. My wife gets in the live chat and says, "Your memory is so amazing and passionate, and here I am with my butt one." Read above. What am I reading? Even deeper, the Jake Roberts B show.
He grabbed my butt. He's squeezing it in.
Oh, wait. Jake Roberts grabbed your butt?
Yeah, Jake just made me a photo of it.
Well, I remember the photo. I don't remember.
That's why I'm like laughing hysterically in the photo.
Oh, I
He
did.
looked at me and he goes, "Is your husband around?" And I went, "No." And then he grabbed my butt.
So my wife is over here. What she likes to do is off camera and off mic tell stories. But so yeah, the message. I like how somebody said the F-bomb on one of our shows the other day, and that came through loud and clear in the live chat. And so my wife said something about Jake, I guess, grabbed her butt. He's and so Jake is so that was what she's mentioning, that my memory of all of this stuff and her memory is Jake grabbed her butt. That was the humorous part. Aurelian Smith Jr., that is Jake's real name. Yes, that is. George in the live chat. What's up, George Fenmore Jr. in the live chat?
Hi, how you doing?
Look at him laughing out loud in the live chat. Oh, man.
But yeah, like I've met Jake in person. I've had little stories like that with him. I've done the bird picture with him. You know what I mean with that.
Yeah.
Jake's like signature picture. I've helped him take other people's pictures like that. Like Jake's a really, really good. And here's the thing too, like compared to where he was, he's kind of laid back now. Like he's more into. There are times he'll get jacked up, but most of the time he's kind of more, like. Yeah, all right, cool. He'll listen to everybody. He's got a good ear. He'll listen to everyone.
Yeah.
Listen to what you have to say. You can tell he's invested in you. Like, big difference between the Jake now than the Jake that he probably used to be. So
right. Let's talk about WrestleMania 3. And no, we're not here to talk about attendance figures, so don't even bother. We've already talked about that. Here's the thing. The documentary does not play up the old school idea that this was the first time that Andre had been slammed. It doesn't even play up that this is the first time that Hogan has slammed Andre, which we all know none of that is true. But it does play up the impact that the slam had. Because by WrestleMania 3, we're talking about a whole new audience. Professional wrestling, when you go back and you look, it was a lot of older adults sitting in the crowd. You used to see those front row seats of the old ladies sitting in the front row screaming at the wrestlers, and that's great. And Vince came in and said, we need to build for the future. We need to protect the future of our business. And so he went after families, in which I'm sure George can go off on for the rest of the show how Vince went after families and TKO isn't.
Oh, God. So what you guys don't know is that me and Pat had talked, and that was almost what this show was going to be about.
Yes.
So
yeah.
you guys got saved this week. Maybe next week we'll figure it out. But like, don't get me started on TKO's pricing right now. Please don't get me started.
We shall not. But and then this is where they do make a small mention about Hogan's ability to exaggerate, where the guy says, like, every time he tells the story, Andre gains 100 pounds. I know Andre at that point was the biggest he'd ever been size-wise. And
wasn't he legitimately like 505 at that point? Like legitimately?
Yeah, I don't believe for a second that he weighed 600 some pounds, that he weighed on an airport scale like the day before. That's what Hogan said in the doc. But
He might have, like, Andre was heavy for him, even for Andre at that point. So it's possible.
I mean, I guess it could be. I would probably put him closer to 5. Like if you look at Big Show, when he was legitimately 500 pounds, he looked about. They looked pretty similar. Just Andre held most of his weight in the middle.
The difference though was that the height, right? Because he's still smaller than Andre was. So like for example, if you go look at my, and you know what I'm talking about when I say this. Like you go look at my progress pictures when I first started, my day one pictures and my wife's day one pictures, we're the same weight, but I'm 2 inches shorter than she is. So she looks heavier than I am, even though we're both 300 pounds in that picture. But the 2 inches made that much of a difference in how we carried our weight.
Yeah, that's true.
So if I think I think Show's top was what, 7'2"? Legitimately, I think he was 7'2" before he had the surgery for the thyroid thing to correct it. I think he was like 7, and he actually shrunk a little bit.
Oh, did
I
he?
remember that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't know if Didi.
I think he's like 7 now, but I think he was like 7'2" originally, and they booked, and then he is like because you know how they like exaggerate on TV. He was like they said he was like 7'4", 7'5", or something like that originally. Yeah. But like I think he was legitimately 7'2" at one point, and then he lost a couple inches after the surgeries and whatnot, and he was down to 7. But maybe I'm mistaken on that, but that's what I believe I remember. But I think Andre was what, 7'4"?
At his tallest, I believe that's how tall he got, was about 7'4".
Right. So, with that, it's possible. Like 2 inches makes that much of a difference where you can weigh the same and how you carry your weight. So it's possible, but I agree with you. I think he's probably was more in the 550 maybe.
Yeah.
Probably not 6, but I remember. I do this for a living, as you do, Pat. Like, we help people like this, so you can eyeball it a lot of the times. I would probably push it more like 550, 560, not 6. But even if he was 6, like, or 5, you go ahead and body slam 5, even with somebody helping you. Go ahead and lift 500 pounds. Not an easy pass. And something they didn't talk about on here too is that when he did slam Andre, every muscle in his back went.
No, it did not. No, it did not. That was
yes, it did.
No, that was not. That is not true. Hogan, if he'd have pulled, that's a Hogan story. That did not happen. Hogan was perfectly fine afterwards. Hogan did not tear every muscle in his back. That is a Hogan urban legend that kept getting worse and worse. Yeah, no, I'm sorry. I have to say that it did not. Hogan was wrestling like 2 days later. He was fine. He might have been like, oh, that was a lot of weight, but he did not tear and pull every muscle in his back.
And everything else too. He didn't feel crap because of he was how drugged up he was.
No, that did not happen, my friend. That did not happen. As much as I wanted to believe that, because it's a great story, right? It is. Like, that's a great story that you picked up Andre and tore every muscle in your back, but it did not. And I think even Hogan at the end.
I mean, he probably could have pulled a muscle. I mean, that's for sure.
Well, that's what I mean. Like, yeah, he might have been like, oh, that was a lot of weight. But yeah, but Hogan at one point, it was every muscle tore. It wasn't that it tweaked it. It was like every muscle tore. And yeah, that didn't happen. But the point I was trying to make I was actually going to defend. What's that?
They didn't even mention that. But like the whole thing is that like, still, even with Andre helping him, which with a body slam, most of it is on the guy getting lifted up. So it was mostly on Andre more than on Hulk. But still,
yeah,
you body slam 500 pounds.
Oh
even
no,
with the guy helping.
Yeah. Well, I guess one of my thoughts was, if that did that to Hogan, why didn't anything happen to Lex Luger when he picked up Yoko? Yeah, I would think. Because I would think Yoko would have been much harder. Yoko was, I mean, you're talking about a massive human being, much shorter, and all that weight is. But anyway,
Yoko would have been way harder than Andre's.
I mean, and Yoko got up for him too, but
a lot of Andres are just pure body muscle because of how tall he was, right?
Yeah.
Like um but Yoko was just it was all fat. Like there was muscle under there, but a lot of that was
Yeah.
just fat.
The point I was trying to make, though, a lot of people give WWE giving this moment so much emphasis, which it was. It still stands out to this day as one of the peak moments of WrestleMania, Hulkamania, pro wrestling. And it wasn't so just because Hogan slammed Andre. I think we're missing the point here. It was what that moment represented. And the moment represent. Yeah, it was Hogan. This was Andre passing the torch to Hogan. It wasn't just so much the slam. It was what the slam meant. Yes, other people have slammed Andre. But here's another truth that a lot of people don't want to think about. Every other time Andre was slammed before that, it was a different Andre. It was a smaller Andre. It was a more agile Andre. It was a lighter Andre. It was not this version. It was not the heel Andre that was going to come out and just end Hulkamania. It was a different story. Everything about it was different. And
it was also thing too. Like Andre hadn't been defeated in how long?
Oh gosh, what it's years, like what, 13 years, something like that?
15.
Yeah.
So Hogan was another part of the story was that the undefeatable Andre the Giant finally got his loss.
Right. And
because he was always.
And the thing we also forget, a lot of these other slams, how many of them can you find? Even now, go on YouTube and look up Andre the Giant being slammed. I mean, like, you can find more now, but back in 1985, 86, how many of them could you really see? None. You know,
if you weren't there or didn't there or sneak some footage, good luck.
Yeah.
Because the internet really wasn't a thing in the 80s at all. I mean, it existed, but not for civilians really. So it was more military based than anything. So like the internet, you know, good luck, right? Like
Teddy Belcher, I love you, my friend. You are the most random live chatter I've ever seen in my life. I love you. Don't ever change. Don't let anybody ever change you. This is amazing. So I'm just going to read some of these really quickly here. George, enjoy. I'm sure you've already read them. Savage versus Steamboat Mania 3 was just Randy running away like DDP stalking Undertaker's wife. That is a statement that made me giggle. Then the next statement was, I was like, okay, DDP stole a lot from Randy. Everybody stole from Randy, and I don't like to use the word stole in pro wrestling. It's you learn in pro wrestling. Like, DDP didn't steal Randy's moveset. He didn't steal Randy's character. He learned from Randy. He learned how to put a match together. He learned, they both were very much like very detailed in working out their matches. No Ted match at Mania 3. I'm guessing you mean Ted DiBiase. Ted owned most of Mania 4. But Randy did all the heavy lifting at Mania 4. Ted bought his way to the main event. I mean, he still had to get in there, but I think he got there were a couple times when, or at least one match he just got to go straight on through. Hogan did not tear his back. Thank you very much. Lex is shorter, so he lift lower. Boogie Woogie Wah Man has his last match today. I don't know who Boogie Woogie Wah Man is. July 23rd is the Headbangers retirement. Like, I love you, Teddy. Don't ever change, because you are giving me information that I did not know, and that means so much to me. And I'm not joking, really. Like, I love that. I love when the chat does its thing, and I'm able to just kind of go, all right, so I'm not the only one that just goes off on tangents and gets completely off subject. I feel a lot better about me when the live chat does that. All right. So Hulkamania, of course, running wild. WrestleMania 1, huge moment. They do talk about how important it was that was a success. Oh, George, something the documentary talked about that I was so happy that they talked about. Richard Belzer. That was awesome. Because I so want to believe that everything Hogan says in his interview about this moment is absolutely true. I'm not a big Richard Belzer fan, never have been, and never will be. And I did find that he came across in that interview as being very pompous and just like he had it coming kind of thing. And the idea that Hogan was burning the candle at both ends, trying to promote WrestleMania, and he gets there probably not in the best of moods anyway. And here comes Richard Belzer kind of mocking the whole thing. And then there's Mr. T, probably in character, but really egging Hogan on. And all he does is put him in a front face lock.
It's just about, yeah.
It was so, and then I never noticed before, and this is probably because of the improvement in the quality of TVs and stuff. Never noticed before that Belzer was bleeding.
Yeah.
You can actually see the blood trickling down onto his shirt and stuff. I never noticed that before. So, but what did you think about, like, you knew about that moment beforehand, obviously. What's your opinion on it?
I mean, if I was Hulk, I would have choked his ass out too. So
I mean, anybody tries to make it. I mean, even if he wasn't purposefully doing it, I felt he was being very disrespectful. And anybody gets disrespectful about something that you love, and Hogan loves professional wrestling. He loves what he does for a living. It provides for him and his family. You're gonna, I'd want to do the same thing. Hulk was the backup to Make-A-Wish. He never had the number one spot. Okay, so who was number one? I'm pretty sure at some point Hogan was the number one Make-A-Wish guy. I can't imagine he wasn't at some point in his career. Maybe not overall. We know that John Cena is the number one Make-A-Wish guy. Oh, you don't even have proof, Mr. Teddy? You're like, probably Disneyland was number one? How dare you, sir, come on here and state a fact and then not have backup for that fact? How dare you, sir? Disneyland number one? Like,
Hogan was number one for all of like the latter half of the 80s and early 90s. Hogan was number one.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I love Disneyland, and I feel like going to Disneyland isn't exactly like a big wish. Like, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. I could be wrong. But in terms of celebrities, I'm pretty sure Hogan was tops. I did not expect you to come out with probably Disneyland was number one wish. How dare you, sir? Take us off topic like that. All right. But WrestleMania 1 with Mr. T, Hogan, of course, huge part in that. And this is why I don't give celebrities and celebrity involvements a lot of flack in WrestleMania. WrestleMania 1 probably is still a big deal with Hogan alone. But let's be honest, Mr. T, all the celebrities that showed up, Cyndi Lauper, that helped put WWE on the map. WrestleMania 2, they don't really cover that at all. That's King Kong Bundy in a steel cage. They were in Los Angeles for that. We get to 3. 4, Hogan doesn't play much of a role in except to assist Macho Man in winning the WWE title. Then we have the Mega Power. I almost said superpowers. The Mega Powers colliding for at WrestleMania 5.
I actually have WrestleMania 5 on VHS.
Attaboy. I love that. Number one Make-A-Wish granters that are not John Cena. So I'm guessing these are current numbers. Justin Bieber. And it's kind of funny, like 250. Like, it's weird when you hear John Cena. I'd like to know what he's up to at this point, because I think he's like heads above everybody else.
I think he's like a prison or something.
He's up there, man. Because I think, when he broke the record, I was gonna say when he broke the record, it was only in the 2s, and that was a long time ago. Dwayne The Rock Johnson.
I think he still does Make-A-Wish stuff still to this day.
Yeah,
I think he's still doing it. Like,
he probably still did it while he was a heel.
Yeah.
Michael Jordan. who has granted hundreds of wishes since 1989, and Chris Pratt, my boy Chris Pratt. Cena has over 650 Make-A-Wish wishes granted. That's amazing. That is why you don't turn John Cena heel. And let's be real, that's why. You know, because he does stuff like that. All right. WrestleMania 5. WrestleMania 6, they do cover that. The Ultimate Warrior versus Hulk Hogan. I felt the documentary was a little harsh on Warrior. Like, I liked the Warrior as a kid. I thought, at that time he had a great presentation. I get he wasn't the best in the ring, but when you put him in there with a guy that knew what he was doing, like Hogan, $1 Million Man, Macho Man, some of my favorite matches from back then had Warrior in it. WrestleMania 7 was Macho and Warrior stole the show.
But I already knew the stuff with Warrior and stuff like that. Like, he was blown up like immediately, wanting to go home, and Hogan made him like work and whatever, and exhausted he was. Like, I remember I already knew that whole story or whatever. Like, that was nothing new for me. But like and how everyone felt about Warrior at that time, like, that's not to anybody that wasn't a shocker. He things changed at the right before he died. Everyone made amends, but like, that's how everybody felt about him for forever, right? Like,
I think the way it was presented kind of threw me, because it felt like these guys were still harboring such negative feelings against Warrior, which some of them might, and rightfully so. I'm not going to take that away from anybody. I just felt like it was very anti-Warrior, right? But WrestleMania 6, I've said many times, that's the WrestleMania that made me a lifelong fan. That's the first WrestleMania I ever watched from beginning to end. Thoroughly entertained to this day. It's the one that means the most to me. WrestleMania 7, we don't cover that very much, unfortunately. I thought that might have been a fun little bit to cover with Sergeant Slaughter, that heel turn that he had with the Iraq War, the moving venues. I get that doesn't have a lot to do with Hogan, but here we have Hogan talking about how he's the biggest thing in the industry and the industry's hot. And by WrestleMania 7, we're starting to cool off a little bit. And we were going to go to the LA Memorial Coliseum. I remember we were going to buy tickets in the upper deck. They were $20 a ticket to go to WrestleMania. And no, don't get started, George. And they moved from the Memorial Coliseum to the LA Sports Arena. And there's, to this day, no one seems to have the exact answer as to why. Because you've got one side saying it was for security reasons. You got one side saying it's because ticket sales weren't very good. There was all this information. I'm sure the answer is somewhere in the middle. But what is your thoughts on WrestleMania 7? Are you surprised they didn't include anything really about that one in here?
No, because I wasn't really surprised, because they did mention that like Hogan did beat Sergeant Slaughter, and they skimmed over it, right? Like, the whole point was to continue on with the story that they were telling. So it wasn't about going over wrestling per se; it was going over Hulkamania. So that's probably why.
Yeah, and that's why. Yeah, I kind of figured as much. I think there's so many like what ifs or whys in pro wrestling that whenever I feel there's an opportunity to talk about it, like it doesn't happen. The only time they've ever discussed it in any form was there's a WrestleMania documentary that WWE made, and they go over that, and of course they give the talking points where it's a security risk, because we do know it's true that Sergeant Slaughter was getting death threats to his home. They had to relocate. Vince relocated his wife and everything. So that was very, very real. And their reasoning is that they had to change the venue to a more secure location. And they'd already sold enough to basically sell out the LA Sports Arena. So they just moved it. There actually were more tickets sold than that. So there were a lot of people that got refunds. There was, and some people probably went and got better seating and got a better view because of the change in venue. So, but then Hogan we don't talk a whole lot about WrestleMania 8. We do get the little snippets of interviews where Hogan's talking about walking away during this time, and it's crazy to think that what we all thought was his final interview and his final match at WrestleMania 8, and 10 years later he's wrestling The Rock in an icon versus icon match and everything he did in between. Like, it's crazy to think about. But that's the Psycho Sid match, or Sid Justice match, whatever you want to call it. And we have the Warriors run in. None of that's really talked about. But we do get to, and let's talk about this, WrestleMania 9. George, what are your thoughts looking back right now on WrestleMania 9? Is it the crap show, as I'm putting it lightly, that everyone makes it out to be? Was it something? Do you understand why they made the call? Talk to me about WrestleMania 9. What are your thoughts on it?
So that was when because I'm still waking up here. That's when Brett and Yoko and all that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So as a kid, I loved it because I was a big Hulkamaniac. I was like, oh, Hulk Hogan won the world title again. Yeah. But as an adult going back looking at that was some shady, weird
stuff.
Yeah.
The PG S word.
I caught myself.
Thank you for that, by the way.
I'm not Mrs. Fenmore.
No, yeah. She's the sailor mouth over in that family.
Well, she's military. That's why, right?
Oh, there you go.
Former.
There you go.
Yeah. So, potty mouth. But so, you have Yoko cheated to win. You had Hogan come out there going, hey, that's not fair to, I think Earl Hebner or one of the Hebner brothers, right? And they go out there and they, I think it was out there. Maybe I'm wrong. Went out there and, he's trying to defend Brett or whatever. And then they challenge him for the title right now. Hogan's like, I don't know, Brett's title. And Brett's like, go get him. You know, it was just like, and then they go over to Brett, like current day Brett is just destroying that thing.
Brett, here's the thing. I've always been a big Brett fan. Like, I loved Bret Hart. I in the ring, he was amazing. My wife got me a cameo from him for my 40th birthday, and it was amazing. It was great. It was short and sweet, but it was really good. And I'm like, oh, that's Bret Hart. That's amazing. And I probably wouldn't say no to meeting the dude, but God, is that man bitter. And
oh yeah.
I mean, it's to the point where it's almost like, it's almost comical, you know, that he still to this day just harbors so much animosity. You know, I get he deserves to be mad at Bill Goldberg, but how many times like you said with Hogan, how many times do you have to apologize for that? It was an accident. Goldberg didn't kick him in the head on purpose. They both acknowledged that Goldberg even told him, I'm gonna super kick. Like, look for the kick. He tells him this. And so it's like, how long can you really try to make a guy feel like absolute dirt for a mistake that happened in professional wrestling? Right? Droz got his neck broke and was paralyzed for the rest of his life from D'Lo Brown. And Droz didn't hold on to that. He forgave D'Lo for that.
Look at Randy Savage. He kept dropping the elbow after Dallas told him not to on the elbows and, you know, making him cough up blood. And Dallas doesn't hold anything against Randy. Randy kept hitting him in the same spot, even after he told him not to.
Yeah. I mean, like, there's certain times when you're like, I get it. I get why you'd be mad at a guy. Undertaker can kind of laugh off the fact that the Giant Gonzalez was hitting him in the back of the neck every time instead of across the shoulder blades. But even he kind of makes a joke about it, whereas Brett looks legitimately mad at everybody he talks about, and he buries everybody. And this documentary was no different.
Unless your name is Owen, he buries you. Like, it's just that simple.
Even his own like his sisters now are starting to call him out and dispute a lot of the things that, like, his sister takes issue with the fact that he continues to claim that the British Bulldog was absolutely drugged up and didn't know what he was doing in their SummerSlam matchup, and that he did all the work to make it work in that matchup. Now, I don't know what's true about that and what's not. His sister claims that none of it's true. That Davey Boy was just as integral a part in that match as Bret was. So I don't know, but like I said, it doesn't take away my ability to go back and watch a Bret Hart match because they're incredible. But I do have a hard time listening to him. But sometimes he is a train wreck that you just can't help but stop and look at.
Oh yeah.
But anyway, moving on. Let's go into the Hollywood Hogan section here because it is, to me, the most fascinating. And the documentary, the way it works in the documentary is a little off-putting to me because I don't agree with it. When Hogan went to WCW, they play it off as if it's this big charade that it didn't have any impact on WCW. The Hogan character was dead, blah, 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 blah.
That's not true.
It's not. The way it plays out in the documentary, I completely disagree with because there's facts to back up what my belief is, which is that when he went to WCW, there was an immediate impact. Did it skyrocket them to being the number one? No. They still were behind WWE, but WCW was like they were the redheaded stepchild of pro wrestling at this point. Nobody took them seriously. And when Hogan came over, he legitimized WCW in a sense. And they had the biggest pay-per-view numbers.
Yeah, they got big pay-per-view numbers. They were, they weren't ahead of WWF.
Right.
Because E wasn't a thing then. But so that they were ahead of WWF. They weren't ahead of WWF by any means, but they suddenly became competition for WWF.
Yep.
And that was nothing. They were never even near that level.
Yep.
For that. And it was instant. And then you had, which they didn't get covered over, and I get it because this is about Hogan, but Randy Savage came over and stuff like that. And then you had the Mega Powers back, and then, they were doing the Dungeon of Doom stuff. And then that's where Big Show first comes up as the Giant, playing Andre's son at first.
Yep.
Like wrestling was like, and it was over for a while. And then, which they do get into, it started getting old.
Yep.
And fans wanted something different. And then we're starting to get a little more edgy stuff again because competition. They're starting to get a little bit more stuff going on over there, and then we have the curtain call, and then which isn't mentioned there because it's on the other show. Right. But then you get Scott Hall showing up on TV, and then Kevin Nash, which I feel like they should have went more into the NWO stuff, the start of it, and then into it because they all tied together. And Kevin Nash even mentions it in the show that when they went out there, they weren't even sure Hogan was going to join them. They didn't know until Hogan came out.
Right.
Like it almost would have been it was going to be Sting as the backup if Hogan didn't do it. Yeah. So kind of weird. Could you imagine how everything would have turned out if it ended up being Sting as the one, and Hogan had to be the one to save everyone? That would have been really weird. I don't think it would have worked.
I told my wife this while we were watching the documentary, and I kind of had to explain to her a little bit. The NWO does not work in the way that it did. It would never have worked without Hogan. Yep. Hogan is the only choice that puts it over in this way that makes sense with the story that they're trying to tell. Sting doesn't make sense. Because Sting's not an outsider. He was never a WWE guy. It makes more sense for a WWE guy to be that third man. It would have been more sense for Randy Savage to be the third man than Sting.
Yeah.
It actually could have made more sense for Lex Luger to be the third man than Sting.
Or Ric Flair even, because Ric Flair was in WWE for a while. So
yeah. And Hogan, that moment I think George has talked about this. I know I've talked about it several times on the program. That is, to me, the greatest heel turn ever in the history of pro wrestling. And everyone kept comparing John Cena's to this one. There is no comparison. The moment itself for John Cena was fine, and it was a big moment. The difference I have always said is what happened afterwards. Afterwards, Cena's heel turn fell apart. He's back to being a good guy within 6 months. Hogan changed the industry with his heel turn and became a heel and stayed that way for years. And the NWO dominated professional wrestling.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But I would like to point out too, like, look how the fans reacted.
Yep.
Right? Like, they almost rioted.
Yep.
Mean Gene Oakland got hit in the head with people throwing in beer cans and beer bottles, and also he got actually even in the documentary you can see it, he's bleeding because he got whacked in the face. What from fans throwing all this crap into the ring, and they almost rioted. Right? Like that wasn't a thing anymore. I guess in the early 80s, 70s, 60s, whatever, that was a thing, but it hadn't happened in so long. Like, you find me any other footage of any other thing modern from 90s on of fans almost rioting. Like, it doesn't happen like that. Not from professional wrestling.
Right.
Like they were legit. Like, I can't say that word, but they were mad.
Oh yeah. Yeah, one fan even legit jumped over the railing. And
and Kevin beat that crap out of him.
Yeah. Yeah, you do not do that, guys. Just a reminder. Don't try to go after these guys. Yeah, it's a powerful moment, and here you're talking about a time. And here's let me pose this question to you. If you look back on Hogan's career, right? Hogan said there were 2 times when he probably should have walked away. One would have been when he left WWE, and the other would have been after WrestleMania 18 when he faced The Rock.
Yeah.
Do you think that Hogan's resurgence and the massive success as Hollywood Hogan and the NWO and what happened with WCW, do you think that was the beginning of Hogan truly kind of being the believing the hype, believing that he was really truly bigger than the business? And
yes.
Yeah, and that meant he could never really walk away from it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of thought about that the other day. It's like, had he just kind of faded away into the sunset, I think he would have understood, okay, even Hulk Hogan is mortal. Even Hulk Hogan has his time. But I think this moment here where he takes WCW, a distant number 2, and almost overnight explodes into the number 1 wrestling company. And nobody in their right mind ever saw that coming. I think it gave Hogan just the right kind of ego boost. And I'm not trying to put him down for it or anything, but I think it boosted him just enough to think that the Hulk Hogan character will truly never die. And no matter what I do, I just got to keep going. And I got to keep going and keep going because I'll always be successful in this business. And I don't know, it's just an interesting thing that I was thinking about. Without that moment, I think Hogan does go away sooner than later. I think Hogan does retire sooner than later. Now, what he does after that, I don't know, because it's not like he had a real successful movie career. even though a lot of his movies are very much guilty pleasures for me. I love
Suburban.
that I don't care what anybody says. That is a great movie. And it does get brought up in the documentary. I love Suburban Commando. It is the right kind of stupid.
Mr. Nanny.
I mean, you've got Christopher Lloyd, in there. You've got shoot, why can't I think of her name right now? She played Olive Oil, and she was in The Shining. Debbie or Shelley Duvall. Shelley Duvall is in there, and of course the great and powerful Hulk Hogan as Shep Ramsey.
Hey, my favorite Hogan movie is still to this day is No Holds Barred. I think it's what it was he was playing
Yes.
that. Yeah, yeah,
When he famously asks
yeah,
or says he smells dookie.
yeah.
Or no, he says, "What's that smell?" And the other guy goes, "Dookie," and he's like, "Dookie." And I don't know why, but I've always felt that he was doing a Vince impersonation, and like that line was even written by Vince. Like Vince went, "Ha, ha, that's a funny line, Dookie." Oh my gosh, no holds barred, Mr. Nanny. Uh, of course we have the Thunder in Paradise stuff.
He was in Three Ninjas as well. I think it was like one
Yeah,
of the Three
the
Ninjas.
Three Ninjas, something High Mountain or something. Yeah, it's Three Ninjas. And if he has a very memorable appearance, ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't seen the all-time classic film Muppets from Space, which is all about Gonzo, it's actually, to be fair, it's an underrated Muppet movie. I think it's hilarious. It's my first time experiencing Pepe the King Prawn, who is a classic Muppet character, but. Hogan does appear in there, and he cuts a promo on the end about the NWO. So there you go. There's a Hogan deal for you. Also, the Suburban Commando is famous for also featuring a very young Undertaker as
Yup.
one of the bounty hunters. So good times there. But yeah, I don't know why we're not talking about Hogan the movie star. I mean, come on, Hollywood Hogan. I wonder, like, why Hollywood? Do you know why he chose Hollywood Hogan?
Because I think a lot of people kept saying that he was part-time and he was making all those movies in Hollywood versus being uh there in WCW. I think one of the wrestlers in WCW called him that once as a like an insult, and he took it and ran with it.
Okay, yeah, because I never understood why. Because it's not like he was a big, hugely successful. Like I understood Hollywood Rock, right? When we talk about Hollywood Rock,
Just kind of everyone gets on Roman about being part-time in all the movies, right? And like that was kind of where it had come from. It was in a promo. Somebody had called him like he's never here. He needs to defend the championship. Blah 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 blah.
he couldn't say Hollywood Hulk because of Marvel. Oh wait, is that true? Oh, that's just my wife throwing it out there. Because I thought she was being my info guy in the chat, but that'd be funny. But yeah, well, he was Hollywood Hulk Hogan. But yeah, the NWO time was a huge boost for Hogan. But at the same time, NWO got really bloated. It got too big. WCW, there wasn't the same kind of control over there. Then you got the Vince Russo era, which is brought up in the documentary.
That was the word.
The only thing they didn't talk about, and I'd like to get your opinion on, is something that Russo talks about as being a work that got turned into a shoot, and that is the infamous Bash at the Beach moment where Hogan goes out there to face Jeff Jarrett, and Jeff lays down in the ring. Hogan puts his foot on him, wins the title. As he's walking out, he throws the title on the ground. We never see Hogan in WCW again after that. And then Vince Russo comes out and cuts his infamous promo on Hulk. They don't really talk about that. And that, because I'm sure that had a huge effect on Hogan and his decision to not come back to WCW, to wait out his contract and all this kind of stuff. So what are your thoughts on that whole Vince Russo Bash at the Beach thing?
Man, I hated it, all of it.
Yeah.
At that point, what? I'm a teenager. I'm almost an adult, if not an adult at this point. Like I hated all of it. Um, I was like 16, 17, and it actually made me stop watching WCW for a hot minute. I really did. I stopped watching WCW for a couple months because of all that. Like, I actually just started watching exclusively Raw, and that was it. Like, it was that bad for me.
Yeah.
It was like Rusev was terrible at it. Now, here's the thing too, right? Like, I love Vince Russo's son, as you, I don't know, I'm sure you've met Will. Like I love Will to pieces. Um, Will was awesome, but like his dad at that point in time was, mm-mm-mm.
Yeah.
Yo, ugh.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. The David Arquette thing I thought that was the nail in the coffin. I do like that they do address the finger poke of doom.
Yeah.
And Kevin Nash always tries to defend the finger poke of doom, and I'm like, dude, just stop. Like,
Well, to be fair, he was right about one thing. They both become severely beat up at
oh
that
yeah,
point. You weren't going to start a match.
no, no, you weren't. It still was like you're in the Georgia Dome, 60,000 people are there, something like that, and your main event is boop, right, and it's just like you can do that on a Nitro in front of 12, 15,000 people. You can't do that on a Nitro in front of 60,000 people. It's the optics of it, right? It's
So,
timing.
like, the thing too, people always make fun of that, but honestly, WWF did it first. If you remember correctly, Triple H versus Shawn Michaels for the European
Right.
Championship, and basically did the same thing where they hop skipped over whatever and boom 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 and I'm sorry I tried like that. If you go
Right.
watch it, it's hilarious. I just thought I just looked mad.
Yeah. Now I will give them this. Like so Shawn and Triple H when they did that, right? I
They
don't think
did more.
I don't think it was the main event of Raw. Number one. Number two, you could make a case that at that time, Shawn and Triple H are nowhere. I mean, honestly, and even to this day, you could say that they were not anywhere near the star power of Kevin Nash and Hulk Hogan.
Right.
Maybe Kevin Nash. You could say Shawn Michaels is greater star than Kevin Nash, but you could make a case that even all three of them combined don't equal the star power of Hulk Hogan. And
Right.
I think when you take all things into consideration, I don't think the moment itself is bad. I think the timing, the optics of it, and all that it is what really is bad.
And what people forget too is like there was actually a storyline behind all of
Oh
that.
yeah,
Like
there
most people
was.
don't know. But you had the NWO had broken up, that it was like the NWO Wolfpack versus the NWO Black and White, and it ended up being a ruse
Right,
all whatever, right? And
right.
nobody knew at the time, right? Like, which made it really weird that Sting was in the Wolfpack, right? But let's not get into that.
Yeah, no, I can go. That's another one. Like for you with the TKO thing, that could be a whole show for me. I just
Yeah,
that ticked me off. When Sting joined any version of the NWO, like no. I was mad, and I didn't even like WCW that much. I mainly watched it because my buddy in college watched it, and I told the story. He never shut up about this guy DDP, and I ended up watching it because DDP at the time was feuding with Hulk Hogan, with Dennis Rodman and Karl Malone, and all of that. And so I'm thinking, oh,
the,
DDP must be a big deal if he's feuding with Hulk Hogan.
the best parts of all of WCW have to do with either the NWO, DDP, but DDP is because of the NWO's involvement, like they all kind of twist together. Um, and then eventually branches out, after that. But that's what made Dallas was Savage, which he was
Right.
in the NWO, so the
Yeah.
NWO stuff. Um, Sting, Goldberg at the time because he was hot. Um, but like honestly, like after Starcade, it just started that whole botch thing with
Oh,
winning. That's what we should do a show on that. Like we should really should.
the
But like
'96.
yeah, Yeah, the Starcade, like
Yeah.
the lead up to it, all of it. And we should just do the whole NWO, I don't know, whatever you want to do, but like
Right.
you could just do Starcade, we could do a whole show on,
Yeah.
but
Which
yeah,
which
like
also
or the build
doesn't
up to it.
that match also doesn't get any talk in the documentary. The whole thing
Not at all.
was
But you think it
Sting.
would because that was a big deal.
Yeah, it was a big moment, and it's kind of one of those, was Hogan right in what in because he's the one that was like this isn't working. Sting comes in. And I know Eric gets a lot of flack when he's like he came in, he wasn't tanned, he wasn't this, and I get that sounds bad, but again, it's optics. I tell this in my business that I work in security. I tell my officers, I go, perception is everything. Perception is more important than reality to people watching what you're doing.
For him not being tan, I would have been okay with. He's playing a Crow character.
Right. Yeah. And then, like I said, I get the ridiculousness of it, but he did show up. If you look at the Sting we got in '96, physically he does look much different than the Sting that we saw even a year earlier.
Oh yeah.
And he did look like he was a little. What's that?
It was the first time on TV you saw him without his coat on.
Right. And he didn't look like the same muscular, fit Sting. And so there's a part of me where I'm like, I kind of get it. It was done poorly. It was all a bad decision. But perception is BS when their perception is wrong. People should never be held to someone else's perception, which is true. But the problem is when you're in a business that is all about optics, perception still means just about everything. Like I said, in security, in the business that I work, if the perception is that you're not doing your job, it's on you to prove that you are. It's not on the other people to accept that you are and just believe that you are. It's about perception. Did you get my comments about why Hogan called himself Hollywood? It's an actual fact. Yes. You said he adopted it in 1996 to reinvent his image as a villain or heel when turning away from his stale, wholesome hero persona to co-found the NWO faction. I mean, it still doesn't explain why he chose Hollywood, but I guess it's because it gives him the opportunity to play more of the Hollywood type that we all kind of think of, the stuck-up.
That's where it came from. Again, it was a promo. Somebody cut him from being part-time, and and he just went. He just took it and went, okay, fine, I'll own it.
Yeah. To deny perception, I'm not naive enough to think that, like perception isn't something that we should be recognizing. And I tell guys it all the time, make sure that the perception of what you are doing and everything is lining up with what you're actually doing. The perception of who you are should match who you are. Right? Don't pretend to be something you're not. Don't give the people the idea that you are something that you're not. And this gets touched up on with the steroid scandal in the documentary. And I'm very glad that they addressed the interview on it was the biggest freaking talk show at the time. Why can't I think of it now?
I can't think of it either. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, woof, 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 woof. Arsenio Hall. There it is. Yeah. And Hogan, it was Hogan's decision to go out there and protect the Hulk Hogan image. And again, he's kind of addressing this as, I'm doing the interview like I'm Hulk Hogan here. I'm not Terry. It's almost like he's saying like, no, Terry Bollea's the guy that took the steroids. Hulk Hogan didn't. Hulk Hogan was he took his vitamins, he said his prayers, he trained. Terry Bollea is the one that did all this other stuff, right? It's protecting the character. So he's giving the interview as Hulk Hogan, which is kind of his out. But at least he admits now that it was a bad idea. That he went on there and everyone else is just like, we know you're lying. Like, we all know you're lying right now. And I think the whole world knew he was lying. So what were your thoughts on that segment? Because I was pleasantly surprised to see that they included it.
I was surprised that they included it as well. Like I thought they were gonna skip all over the whole steroid thing completely, to be honest with you. So I was kind of shocked that they went into it at all. So when Hulk came out there, as a kid at that point, I was still a kid, so I was naive. I believed him. So
Yeah. All right. So this isn't. I know I'm not going to. I made a point, and I'm talking about perception, and my point is valid, and it matters. Yeah. What you're talking about isn't perception. What you're talking about is assumption and false information. Perception is different than what you're describing in the live chat. It is. It's just different. Perception is a different story here. I'm not saying you're wrong. That perception isn't BS. I don't know why I'm being argued with it. But it's true. Perception is real. You can't escape it. If you're working at, and I was talking about it from a job perspective, from a pro wrestling perspective here, perception's important. If you perceive that this wrestler can beat the other wrestler, you can tell a story that way. If the perception is that there's no way this guy can beat that guy, it changes the whole perspective of the match. If a guy comes out and looks like he's not in shape, the perception is there's no way he's going to beat a guy that is in shape. It's important. It's an important part of telling the story and all that stuff. It's an important part of work. Like I said, if you're in my business, perception is important. It's important to remember and think about. Otherwise, you could lose your job. That's the only point I'm trying to make. I'm not trying to say you're wrong in this instance. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying that to just make a blanket statement that perception is BS. Sometimes perception plays a very important role in what we do and stuff like that. So anyway. All respect. No, I'm not mad. Not anything like that. Just being honest, being open here. All right. But Hulk versus Terry is episode 4, the last episode. We're going to wrap this up pretty quickly here. So, George, I want to get your thoughts here. What did you take from that last episode? Do you feel like Terry Bollea still exists inside of there, or do you think the Hulk Hogan persona basically took over?
I feel like Terry took over after his wrestling career was over. I really do. I feel like he went and found Christ. He was at his lowest of lows, found Christ again. He went and it's my kid. I was like, what was that? He found Christ. He got married to his third wife. He met up with his son, not so much with Brooke, but with his son. Maybe he did make a Brooke. I don't know. It wasn't on there, but I think from what I understood, they did make up. But there's a lot of family drama they didn't get into.
Yeah.
He kind of started going into the political atmosphere and whatnot, as we mentioned briefly. Which I feel like was more Terry Bollea and not Hulk Hogan. So
Right.
I feel like it was. I feel like near the end he finally was just being himself and not being Hulk. Like he would be Hulk for the Hulk Hogan beat shop or something. But other than that, I think he was mainly just Terry at that point. So yeah, I feel like he at the end, yes. Not so much before that.
I think definitely the showman's still there. You saw him when he would record his little promos and stuff for everything, and then you would see he would become Hulk, and then as soon as it was done, he would just just kind of slump. One of the things that in the chat, is that a callback to Ghostbusters? In the chat there, it says there is no Terry, only Hulk. All I could think of when I read that was there is no Dana, only Zool. But one of the things that really struck me that the documentary showed was the pain of being Hulk Hogan. I'm not going to say the pain of being Terry Bollea. It's the pain that came with being Hulk Hogan, the physical pain. I mean, watching him stand up hurt me every time. He was walking with a cane. His feet weren't quite aligned as he walked. Um, he
I mean,
talks.
there's a reason why Dallas kept pestering him to do DDPY, because Dallas knew he could help him.
Yeah.
He may not be able to fix him. He's never going to get him 100%, but it could have improved his quality of life,
Yeah.
which is all Dallas wanted for him.
And not a callback. I didn't know about Ghostbusters. All right. Fair enough. Go ahead, George. Sorry.
So, he was in a lot of pain, and I actually can relate to a way lesser degree. Like sometimes, like I'll have injuries and whatnot, and whenever I go to like a summit or something, I just like grit my teeth in my head and I just power through, and you'll never know I'm hurt.
Right.
Because there's a perception of that's Fenmore. Fenmore can do X, Y, and Z. And sometimes I get in my own head and I feel like people expect to see me be able to do X, Y, and Z. I'm starting to get out of that. I'm trying to. But there was a while there where there was a story I was telling myself and I had to get out of my own head for. So I can get from his point of view. Again, I'm nowhere near his level of shoes, right? Like I'm like an ant and he's, I don't know, like a great oak or something, So, I understand. And like I said, like the last episode was the hardest for me, and I talked to you about it a little bit yesterday. Is that like when he did pass? For me, it was really rough. My phone started blowing up. And I was right in front of Diamond Dallas Page. Like I was on the floor taking a workout with Dallas at the first Transformation University. And Dallas was teaching on stage in front of me, 6 feet from me, like literally diagonally. I could reach out and touch him. Literally could touch him. I was that close to him. And I looked down and saw one of the Facebook messages I had pop up on my thing was, "Oh my God, Hogan just died." And I saw it, and I looked up at Dallas, and we're in twisting lunge. And I just looked up at Dallas and went, in my head, I'm like, "Oh, B." I didn't know what was going to happen next. And it was so hard because I know how much Hulk meant to Dallas in his career and as a person. They were friends. And I'm like, I managed to power through it without saying it. I didn't say anything. I didn't interrupt the class. Because again, we're recording for the app, so I didn't interrupt anybody or anything. And the moment we're done, from the back, Steve Yu, his wife, and others rush him to the back and tell him.
Yeah.
Before anyone has a chance to say, because everyone's phone started boop, 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 boop. So before anybody's got a chance to tell him, they pulled him and told him. So that's how I remember that moment, and it's one of those things that's going to stick with me for the rest of my life. It hurt. It really hurt.
Yeah.
In more the ways than one.
Whatever you think of Hogan, whatever your opinion is on him, it's a hard moment to watch in the documentary when you see how his passing affected those around him, those closest to him, and those who didn't know him, that weren't close to him. I mean, to say that I got very emotional when Hogan passed. There's not a lot of celebrities and things that I get overly emotional about. Hogan played a huge part in my childhood. Hogan was a part of pro wrestling, without him, I probably don't find pro wrestling. And pro wrestling is one of those things that at some point in my life saved it. And it did multiple times. Without pro wrestling, I don't find Diamond Dallas Page. Without Diamond Dallas Page, there's no DDPY. I don't transform my life 5 years ago and become who I am today. There's all these things. What's that?
This podcast probably doesn't exist.
It doesn't. There's so many things that all come together. It's why I don't believe in just chance. I believe everything happens for a reason. And Hogan was a part of that reason, for better or for worse. And whatever you thought of him, it's a tough moment to watch. And one of the things I really liked about the documentary, because we're gonna have to start wrapping it up here. There's a lot of things I'm gonna leave you with before we go. Some questions you can ask yourself, and I'd love for you guys to put it in the comment section down below. You can put it in the live chat, but we're almost done here. But definitely put the answers to these questions that I'm gonna pose for you guys in the comment section. But I'm gonna close with this in terms of my review of it, and then I want to get George's final grade, his final thought on what he thought of the documentary. Just grade it from like a letter grade, right? A to F. But at the end, they mention it's at the end of the day, what's going to be remembered about Hulk Hogan, for better or for worse. It's not necessarily going to be what he did. It's not going to be necessarily how many titles he won, what promotions he worked for. It's going to be how he made you feel. If how he made you feel was negative, then that's what happened. If how he made you feel was positive, then that's what you're going to remember. It's something that I always talk about when people ask me, like, what is your goal? What are you trying to accomplish here? When it comes to this show, Warriors Unleashed, at the movies, game night, my albums, my book, what is it you're trying to accomplish? What I'm trying to accomplish is I'm trying to make you, the audience, feel something. I'm not just here to yap and yap and yap and yap, even though that's what it feels like. I'm trying to elicit an emotion, a feeling. If you listen to my song and you feel nothing, then that means I didn't do my job. If you read my book and didn't feel anything at any point, then I didn't do my job. I'm a storyteller. When I tell a story, I tell it with emotion and feeling. When I sing with emotion and feeling. My lyrics tell a story, and that story leads to emotion. And that's where I connected with this documentary more than anything else, was just that statement of they can forget everything else about what Hulk Hogan did, but they'll never forget how Hulk Hogan made them feel. So, George, your final thoughts on this documentary, and what is your grade on it? What do you grade this documentary series?
I think they did a good enough job to probably get at like an A minus. It was really good. I would have loved if we could have got more.
Yeah.
But I think that was the plan originally, obviously. So, I would love to see where it could have gone. For all we know, it could have been a redemption story for him that we never got, like a full redemption story. Like by doing this and how it went, and then other episodes, people could have got into knowing the actual person behind and more. And who knows where it could have eventually gone to? Right. Only the Lord knows. But I had happy memories from watching it. I had sad memories. There were things I didn't know. There were things I did know. It took me to like you said, a story, a broad spectrum of emotions. I remember that when I was that age, happy, joy, sad. Oh my gosh, like almost a whole broad spectrum of emotions. So, at the end of the day, he's the immortal Hulk Hogan.
One of my bases for comparisons for documentary, just to give you an idea of what I think is a great documentary, The Death of Superman Lives is to this day my favorite documentary. It truly is. And it tells you everything you need to know. And some of it is BS and some of it's true. It just depends on which talking head you're listening to during the interview. But this documentary series I thought was good. The only thing that I can say, and I'm going to give it a B, but it's a strong, solid B. But here's why. The documentary, it's unfortunate that it ends the way that it does. It's a powerful ending because you see, even seeing Vince McMahon, who is a very polarizing figure at this point, him having everybody give Hogan a one more standing ovation and chanting Hogan. It's an emotional moment. But it doesn't take away that the documentary feels incomplete. And that is, as much as I want to say give it credit and go, they did the best with what they had, it's still it's tough for me. I don't know if it's something I'm going to rewatch anytime soon. I don't, or ever. Um, just because there's so many gaps that I would like to have seen filled, that I think that, yes, had he come back for another interview, I think this is a series that could have gone 8 episodes, right? Really, to tell the full story here of Hulk Hogan, see if he opens up a little bit more about his brother, see if he opens up a little bit more about family, and get Brooke involved. Brooke was a big piece of the puzzle that was missing in this. You had Linda, which was great. You had Nick, which was great. But the absence of Brooke felt like a hole in this documentary as well. So those are my only critiques about it. Otherwise, I thought to me, it actually exceeded my expectations. And I thought it was one of Hogan's best interviews overall that he'd ever done.
And here's another thing too, right? He just got the Andre him moment went into the Hall of Fame where he body slammed Andre, and he just got the bronze statue from we forever immortalized. And I guess both those put together this weekend just made this last week kind of rough for this whole thing. So, but yeah, it's what can we say? He's the immortal Hulk Hogan.
Yep, Hulkamania will live forever.
Oh yeah, in one way, shape, or form.
As Jesse Ventura says, I truly believe Hulkamania will live forever from WrestleMania 6. I believe it. That's why I still have my Hogan, this little LJN Hogan figure here. Hogan, like I said, whatever happens, he made me feel some pretty incredible things in my life and brought me to this wonderful sports and entertainment venture that is professional wrestling. So, guys, here's some questions I want you guys to answer for me. Do you leave them in the comment section? Put them in the live chat if you got time. And so here's some of the questions. Number 1, can someone play a character for 40 years without eventually becoming that character? Number 2, can a documentary honor a legacy while still holding the subject accountable? A lot of times that it's like one way or another, where it's like they only tell the positives, they leave out the negatives, right? It's why I thought the A&E biography of the Ultimate Warrior was really, really good. They didn't shy away from not all the issues that Warrior had a couple things that are not safe for work that he said and did, but can you do both at the same time? Did this documentary do both at the same time? The next question, where does Hogan rank among wrestling's biggest stars? Is he at the top of that list? Does he belong on each and every person's Mount Rushmore of professional wrestling? And I was going to say, did this feel like a true documentary, a tribute, or I thought this is a fair question. All right, just depends on how you look at it. So don't shoot me on this one. Did this feel like a true documentary, a tribute to Hogan, or a reputation repair project? I want you to think about that, because we talked about this earlier in the show. George has very strong feelings about this. I don't think it was a reputation repair project, but I'm throwing it out there because it has been brought up. And finally, the last question. And this is a really good question, I thought, so thank you very much. You're welcome. Did knowing this was his final interview make the documentary more emotional, more sympathetic, or was it harder to judge objectively? I thought those
more
were
emotional.
I definitely agree with it. More emotional. I don't think it was harder for me to judge objectively, because knowing it was his last one. I think just knowing, I think with anybody in professional wrestling, especially from that era, you kind of have to take a lot of what they say with a grain of salt, right? It's more of like, so for example, George, I mean, maybe it's it's not my place to correct you on anything if you say Hogan tore his back or what pulled his back. Maybe it's not my place. If you want to believe that, if you want to believe anything Hogan said, if I want to believe anything Hogan said, that's up to us, right? There's really nobody that can tell you that you're wrong, right? Unless it's just something that's just black and white, like, no. But, you know, if it helps you, if it means something to you, you know, it is what it is. So for me, that wasn't the case. I definitely felt like it was more emotional because you're sitting there watching him give this interview, and the whole time I just kept thinking he's not going to finish it. He's not. This was, you know, he's passed since then. It's a hard thing to come to terms with when you first see something of someone after they pass away, and it's really hard to watch at times. You know, like I said, I haven't gotten overly emotional about celebrities passing, and there's going to be some coming up as I get older that are going to hit harder as I grow older. Hulk Hogan was definitely, I always knew he'd be one. I know Elton John's going to be one. That's going to suck for me. That's going to be a rough day in the Sims household, I'll tell you that right now. Yeah, DDP. Yeah, well, wait, that's not going to happen. What are you talking about?
It's never going to happen.
Never.
It's not allowed. He's not allowed to die. I told him this to his face. He is not allowed to die.
You know he's going to outlive all of us.
He better outlive me. That's what I've told him. He's not allowed to die. I will fall apart. I already tell you this right now.
Yeah. All right. So here's my final thought for you guys before we close out the show. Hulk Hogan, Real American is not just a wrestling documentary. It's a story about fame, ego, myth-making, nostalgia, damage, and whether a man can survive the character that made him who he is. The first half celebrates the birth of a legend. The second half asks what that legend cost Terry Bollea, his family, his body, and his reputation. I think we can all learn something from this documentary. I think whether you're a professional wrestling fan or not, and I think there's a lot to see here that might make you understand what a lot of these pro wrestlers go through. Hogan's not the only guy to live the gimmick. Most of these guys lived the gimmick. They became the gimmick. And I think this was just to the nth degree that, you know, it makes it very difficult to separate the two, the man and the myth. So I do highly recommend, if you are a Hogan fan, if you are a pro wrestling fan, or if you're just wondering what it is that makes Hogan's this big, larger-than-life character, I definitely recommend checking out Hulk Hogan, Real America, which is available right now on Netflix. George Fenmore, thank you so much for being a part of this very special Positively Pat Sim show. As always, you did a fantastic job. Any final words for our listeners on WANT and our viewers right here on YouTube?
You know, one thing a show like this will show you is that, you know, you never know when you're going to lose someone close to you. So always tell your loved ones you love them. And if you're fighting with family that you do love still, there's none of that. It's just, you know, a stupid argument or whatever. Don't be afraid to reach out and tell them you love them, because you never know when the last time's going to come. I mean, it wasn't really addressed in the thing that we talked about, but look at Brooke and Hulk. Like, there's a little family drama there, right? So, hopefully they did make up for them. It wasn't really talked about, so I don't know, but I hope so. I pray so. With that being said, remember to do your DDP yoga. And if you're in Spring Lake, North Carolina, or you want a one-on-one Zoom, hit me up, and we'll worry about getting you guys a good class in. Till then, guys.
Bang. Awesome job. Awesome. Yep. I was already planning as soon as the show was over, go give my wife a big hug and a kiss. Tell her I love her. Try to do so multiple times a day. The people you love, yeah, good advice there. Always. Don't ever pass up that opportunity to tell them how you feel, right? All All right, guys, before we go, positivelypatsims.printful.me is where you can pick up your Positively Pat Sims merch like this shirt, like this hat, and a lot of other stuff. I got a teddy bear over here. We got our Positively Pat Sims buddies, which are my versions of wrestling buddies. They're 22-inch pillows with my likeness on them. I love them. My mom got one. My wife got one. I think they're awesome. So, go ahead and grab it. We'll show.
I had one of the Ultimate Warrior, I think, in a Hogan when I was a little kid.
I
Like
had Warrior and Macho Man because I ordered Warrior and Hogan, and WWE had sold out of Hogan. And instead of waiting for more to come in, they just sent me Randy Savage. This is the game night version of the Positively Pat Sims buddy. Look at the size of this thing. Its head's almost as big as mine. But then there's his look at the little legs. I love this thing. I love this thing. But my wife will take a nap with it. I've walked in with her snuggling it.
You need one more thing. You need the Pat Sims ice cream bars.
Yes. Yes. I won't eat them, but I'll definitely make some. And I'm also looking forward to my album, which you guys can listen to right now across all major streaming platforms, Catching Stars by Positively Pat Sims, Apple Music, Spotify, Amazon, YouTube, Pandora. Check out Catching Stars today. And I'm looking forward to my double LP of that album that I ordered that should be here next month. It does take a while to get these custom LPs, but I'm looking forward to it so I can play it on my record player. That's what this is right here. This is my record player. I've never heard myself on LP before, so that's going to be awesome. Also, guys, right here behind me, you can see the hardcover version of Vengeance, my very first book that I ever was able to publish. It's available right now at Amazon on Kindle, paperback, and hardcover. Get your copies today. You'll be doing me a favor because it'll help encourage me to write more. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us again. Don't forget to go to positivelypatsims.printful.me today. And don't forget to join us next week for all of our Positively Pat Sims shows, both on WANT Radio, which airs 24/7 at WANTradio.com, and on Live 365. Or you can go 24/7 for on-demand access to all of my shows, including Tuesday nights at the movies, which this week is going to be our top 10 movies of all time from the 1980s. One of the best decades for films. Maybe we'll have to throw in No Holds Barred in there just for George as a top 10. And then, of course, we've got Game Night coming back next week. We've got Warriors Unleashed next Friday, and another great edition of the Positively Pat Sims show next Saturday. So, guys, enjoy your weekend. Make it the best weekend you can. Forget about all your troubles and your worries from yesterday. Make today the best that you can and set yourself up for success for tomorrow so that tomorrow's even better than today. So I'll see you guys later. I'm going to get with my wife. We're going to have some yummy, yummy Chinese food, which I haven't had in a while. And then we're off to see Michael. That's right. I'm going to go
tonight too.
Are you? Yes. It's Michael weekend, ladies and gentlemen. So we're going to have to definitely do an episode of At the Movies about Michael. We weren't expecting to go, but I already planned on doing the 80s thing. So, ladies and gentlemen, as we always say, take it easy. And if it's easy, brother, take it twice. So long, everybody. Have a great rest of your weekend. We'll see you next week right here on WANT Radio and the Positively Pat Sims YouTube channel.
The lights are dim, but the room still hums with the echoes of laughter and the moments we spun. Every honest word is like a stone in a stream. It rippled, it lingered, it shaped our dream. And if you ever wonder where I'll be,
and I'll be ready.